There is an interesting contrast emerging in Ireland. For many in Generation X, those born roughly between 1965 and 1980, and certainly those before them, the doors of the church were not closed. They were open. But large numbers simply stopped walking through them. Interest faded. The connection loosened. People drifted, often without much fuss. And yet, there are growing signs that Generation Z, those born roughly between 1997 and 2012, many of whom had little or no connection to church, are showing a quiet curiosity. Not a return in any formal sense, but a tentative openness, a wondering if there might be something more. That contrast brings us close to this weekend's Gospel from John. The image there is different. Doors closed, disciples anxious, the future unclear. Into that space, the risen Jesus comes. Thomas, who was absent before, refuses second-hand belief. Unless I see, unless I touch, I will not believe. It is a line that resonates today. For many in Ireland, belief did not collapse dramatically. It simply stopped working. The language no longer connected. Credibility was strained. What had once been taken for granted could no longer be sustained. So people stepped back, often quietly, thoughtfully. Brian McLaren, an American pastor and writer who has reflected deeply on faith in a changing culture, suggests that this is not just loss, it can be a stage of faith. Sometimes inherited beliefs are not deep enough for lived experience. They have to fall apart before something more honest can emerge. Thomas stands in that place, not rejecting, but unable to pretend. What matters is how Jesus responds. There is no criticism. Jesus returns and meets him directly. Put your finger here. Do not be unbelieving, but believe. Doubt is not excluded. It is met. N.T. Wright has argued that the first Christians experienced the resurrection not as a vague idea, but as something that disrupted their understanding of reality. A new creation beginning in the present. It did not produce instant certainty. It moved through confusion and hesitation before recognition. That feels closer to how belief unfolds in real life. The Acts of the Apostles shows what followed. The early Christians did not begin with arguments. They began with a shared life, gathering, eating together, holding things in common. Faith was sustained in relationship. That detail matters in a culture shaped by individualism. When belief becomes private, it becomes fragile. Carried alone, it is easily let go. Perhaps part of what has happened in Ireland is not only institutional failure, serious as that is, but the thinning out of a shared way of believing. When belonging fades, belief often follows. The first letter of Peter offers a quiet realism. Although you have not seen him, you love him. Faith here is not certainty. It is trust that holds even without full clarity. Richard Carney speaks of something similar in Anatheism. He describes a return to God after God, a second faith that comes after doubt, not a return to old certainties, but to a more fragile openness. That fragility is important, because for many now, Belief does not return fully formed, it begins as a question. A young person recently put it simply: I don't think I believe, but I'm not as sure as I used to be. That is not faith in any clear sense, but it is not indifference either. It is enough. The gospel does not resolve Thomas's doubt with explanation. It resolves it through encounter, through presence. So what might this mean now? It may mean that the task is not to restore certainty, but to make space for questions, for honesty, for searching. It may mean recovering something of the early Christian instinct, creating communities where people can belong without having everything resolved. If the doors of the church have remained opened, but people have stopped entering, then the question is not how to force them back inside, but how to make what happens within those doors recognizable again as life-giving, truthful, and real. Thomas is not a problem to solve. He is a reminder that faith can begin again differently. And perhaps that is where resurrection is found. Not in certainty, but in the possibility that something new can take shape even after belief has faltered. Amen.